What's up guys, we're Ian and Anna, and in this video we're sharing the 10 best things to do in Venice. Let's waste no time and start with number 1, taking a gondola ride. Venice, also known as the floating city of Italy, is made up of 118 tiny islands that are separated by canals and linked together by more than 400 bridges. Even crazier than that though, more than 1500 years ago, the Venetians placed 10 million tree trunks underneath all the buildings in Venice to protect it from sinking. I can tell you right now, this city is by far one of the most unique and romantic places on this planet, and we fell in love with it immediately, even with the crowds. By far the best way to see all of Venice is by going on a gondola ride through the winding canals. The City Council of Venice just established a new set price for gondola rides, and it goes like this. For a gondola boat that fits 5 people, it's €90 total for 30 minutes. And that price sticks from 9 a.m. all the way up to 7 p.m. at night. After 7 p.m., it goes up to €110 total for 30 minutes on a gondola that fits 5 people. Just like most places in the world, some gondoliers might try to get more money out of you, but always try to barter for the lowest price possible. Now, I know a gondola ride is expensive, but there's a reason for it. To build a gondola, it takes 3 months of woodwork and 1 month of painting and carving. It could take a few thousand hours to make a gondola from scratch, and on top of that, to become a gondolier, it takes up to 6 months and 400 hours of skilled training. So instead of looking at gondolas as a ripoff, you should be happy these ancient modes of transportation around Venice are still running to this day. If you want to book the highest rated tour on a shared gondola and not run around to look for one, you could scan this QR code right on the screen. Now, let's say you're traveling with your wife or just one other person, then this will be your cheapest option because instead of paying that €90 for a 5-person boat, you could join a shared boat and pay only €30 per person. If you can't scan the QR code on the screen, don't worry, I'll always have the best tours and experiences linked below this video in the description. Now, if you guys are new here and didn't know, Anna and I shipped our van all the way from the US to Europe and have been traveling in it for the past year over here. During this time, we rescued 3 tiny kittens in Anna's family's village in Serbia, and once we found out we could bring animals on some of the gondolas, we just had to hire a photographer to get some family photos. I know we're a little crazy, but it ended up being so much fun, and the photos turned out amazing. This gondola tour would be a great option if you're on a family trip, getting engaged, or have some adventurous pets, because the photos will be so much fun to look back at. We can't thank Ilaria and Mario enough for helping us with the cats and taking unbelievable photos the entire time. If you want to go on this exact same private gondola ride with a photographer, you could scan this QR code right here on the screen, and if you match with Ilaria, please tell her Ian and Anna say hello. Now let's move on to number 2, Burano Island.
There are so many different islands you can visit surrounding Venice, including Murano, which is famous for its glassmaking, Lido, it has great beaches, and Torcello, where Ernest Hemingway wrote one of his famous novels. But personally, our favorite was Burano because it has been voted one of the most colorful towns in the world, and it's only a 45-minute ferry ride away from Venice. Lucky for us, Burano was only a 10-minute ferry ride away from our campsite in Punta Sabbioni, but I know 99% of you aren't traveling in your van, so you'll take another route. You can buy the tickets for this ferry around St.Mark Square, and it will cost you around €20 per person for a round-trip ticket. I would actually recommend scanning this QR code on the screen for a 5-hour private boat tour that will take you to both Murano and Burano. That way you don't have to figure anything out on your own and you can beat the crowds too. When we stepped foot on Burano, it was as if a rainbow exploded all over this tiny island. But why did the 3,000 locals make it so colorful? Well, this island has been a fishing village since the Roman times, and if you didn't know, Venice gets extremely foggy all over the lagoon. With all this color, boats would easily be able to see the island as they cruised in and out from their fishing trips. This is a great place to eat some seafood because it's much cheaper here than compared to Venice, and I'm guessing it's even more fresh. Burano has canals just like Venice, but without all the crowds, and this tiny fishing village is known for its lacework as well, so it's definitely a great spot to go shopping for dresses, tablecloths, and even masks. If you do end up going on the tour I just mentioned, the guide will actually bring you to see locals making lace on Burano and take you behind the scenes of glassmakers on Murano. These islands are the perfect spots to get some souvenirs. We even ended up buying these cups and love them so much because of how unique they are. Now let's move on to number 3, the famous Carnival Festival.
We visited Venice from February 11th through February 20th, which was perfect timing because we got to celebrate Valentine's Day here and even experience the last few days of the iconic Venice Carnival. Once a year, during the 2 weeks leading up to Lent, over 3 million people flock to the Venice streets wearing the most unbelievable costumes. For those of you that don't know, Lent is a 40-day period of fasting and abstinence leading up to Easter, so the Carnival Festival is a time for Venetians to let loose and celebrate. This wild festival can be traced all the way back to the 11th century, and it has to be at the top of your bucket list because, wow, was it so much fun. The costumes we saw and the way people were acting like movie characters around every single corner was just magical, and something we will never forget. Of course, we had to buy our own masks and run around Venice looking for our favorite costumes, but my favorite part was how easy it was to meet people from all around the world. Day after day, Carnival was such high energy and it just made everyone happy. If you want to visit for this festival, make sure to check for dates and book ahead of time and be ready for higher prices too. Up next, we have number 4, a Venetian dinner cruise.
If you're short on time and want to experience a little bit of everything, going on a dinner cruise is by far the best thing to do. We've gone on dinner cruises all over the world in places like New York City and Paris, but the ship we went on in Venice was so unique. We cruised along the coast in a traditional Venetian galleon, which was a ship used in war between the 15th and 17th centuries. Right as we boarded the ship, we couldn't get over how cozy and perfectly decorated it was. It seriously felt like we went back in time. This cruise costs around $120 per person, and it includes a 7-course meal of fish or meat, served with a welcome glass of Prosecco and a choice of an entire bottle of red or white wine. I'm not kidding you, the amount of food they served us was actually crazy and all of it was so delicious. Sadly, the infamous Venice fog came in during our cruise, so we only got to see a couple spots before we had to rush back to the dock. If you want to go on this exact same dinner cruise, you can scan this QR code on the screen right here, and I'll also have it linked in the description below for you guys. What I love about this cruise is that you can go on it year-round, but during normal weather conditions, you actually get to sail to so many different places, including St.Mark Square, the Doge's Palace, and even those colorful islands we talked about earlier.
I don't know about you, but I think Italy is the most diverse country in all of Europe, and that's why we try to go back as often as possible. And by far the biggest way to feel connected to a country and its locals is by learning the language. So Anna and I made a huge goal to learn Italian through Rosetta Stone. Rosetta Stone is an immersive language learning app that uses pictures, audio, and native pronunciation that helps you retain the new language as if it was your first language you ever spoke. To be honest, learning a language has always been hard for me, especially trying to say the words and phrases correctly, but that's why I love Rosetta Stone's voice recognition feature. This tool compares your pronunciation to real native speakers and gives you immediate feedback on how well you did it, which definitely makes me feel way more confident when speaking to locals. Another thing I love about the app are the mini sessions that are only 10 minutes long, so whenever I have extra time throughout the day, I'm able to just pull out the app and learn instead of wasting time on social media scrolling. Right now is the best time to learn a new language at your own pace. Best part is Rosetta Stone's gonna give you more than 50% off their single language lifetime subscription, or you can get lifetime access to all 25 languages for more than 60% off. You can only get these massive discounts through our link down in the description below, so make sure to check that out. But for now, let's head back into the video. Woo!
Now let's move on to number 5, St. Mark's Basilica and the Doge's Palace.
Right in the heart of Venice is Piazza San Marco, also known in English as St. Mark Square. This is the most popular meeting location in Venice, and it almost feels like all the alleyways and canals lead you right here. To be honest, you'll probably walk through here every single day on your trip, especially because it has the most important buildings in Venice, including the extraordinary St. Mark's Basilica, the Doge's Palace, and St. Mark's Bell Tower. Anna and I ended up going on a 3-hour private tour of St. Mark's Basilica and the Doge's Palace, and it was the best decision ever. I mean, we had no idea Venice was its own republic for more than 1,000 years, so there was just so much history to unpack here. The first thing we did on our tour was visit St. Mark's Basilica, and wow, was it stunning inside and out. Venice was actually one of the richest places in the world at one time, and it really shows with this basilica. Inside, you'll see more than 85,000 square feet of colorful mosaics made with real gold. With this tour, we even got to climb up and access the terraces that overlook the entire square, and got super lucky because we got up there right at sunset and the views were unbeatable. It was just amazing going around these locations with a real local, and if you want to go on the exact same tour as us, you could scan this QR code on the screen right here. But why is the square, the basilica, and the bell tower all named after St.Mark? Well, in 828, Venetian merchants stole the body of St.Mark from Egypt because they wanted a more impressive patron saint of Venice. And right when St. Mark's body arrived in Venice, the Doge, also known as the Supreme Leader, ordered the basilica to be built at that exact same location. After the basilica, we walked 1 minute next door to the Doge's palace, which has one of the most unique exteriors I have ever seen. The Doge's palace was the official residence of the Doge. That's a fancy word of saying the leader of the Venice Republic. Like I said before, Venice was very wealthy, so the inside of the Doge's palace will make your jaw drop. We were especially blown away inside the Grand Council Chamber, which was this massive, wide-open room with the most detailed frescoes covering the walls and the ceiling. The last and most surprising thing we did was walk across the Bridge of Sighs, which is an enclosed bridge that connects the palace to the prison. The Bridge of Sighs is one of the most famous attractions in Venice, and something you will glide right underneath on your gondola rides. Legend has it, if two lovers kiss below the bridge while in a gondola, they will enjoy eternal love. Seeing the original prison cells was super cool, and it's wild Venice used these cells all the way up until World War I. Something I loved about our tour guide is that she went into the history of Marco Polo. I'm guessing most of you know him from the pool game Marco Polo. Well, for those of you that don't know your history, Marco Polo is the most famous Western traveler, and he was from right here in Venice. He traveled to and lived in the Mongolian Empire, what is now China, for more than 20 years. The reason he became so famous is because he wrote a book of his journeys where he told stories of his adventures along the Silk Road, which is a route that leads from Europe all the way to China. Our guide was telling us the most amazing stories about Marco Polo and how he was and still is a Venetian hero. Now let's move on to number 6, taking a day trip to the Dolomites.
One of the best things about Venice is its close proximity to the Dolomites, which is one of the most spectacular mountain ranges in the entire world. There are many different ways to get to the Dolomites, like taking a bus or train, but the fastest and by far the best option is by driving. It only takes 2 to 3 hours to reach, and the drive up has endless views. Now, if you're too nervous to rent a car or you don't have enough time on your trip, there's day trips you can take right from Venice. I'll have the highest rated day trip linked below, or you can scan this QR code on the screen right here. Ian and I actually spent 3 weeks in the Dolomites in our van during the fall, and it's by far one of the greatest experiences we had in our lives, especially because the kiddies had such a blast. This region rivals Switzerland, and if you're interested in going, we made an entire top 6 Dolomites video to help you travel throughout the entire region. Now, if you're renting your own car or traveling in a camper van like us, the one thing you must do is drive the Jiao Pass as you make your way up from Venice. This road is around 12.5 miles long or 20 kilometers, and it leads you through hairpin turns and some of the most dramatic views you will ever see. Even though this will add some time to your driving, it's still 100% worth it. We actually drove this road on November 1st, and the fall leaves were at their peak. We cannot wait to go back to the Dolomites one day because there is endless things to do there. Up next, we have number 7, the best food and gelato in Venice.
First and foremost, you need to visit the tiny wine bars called osterias that are scattered all over Venice, and eat as many cicchettis as possible. A cicchetti is a small appetizer on pieces of bread with endless toppings from tuna to shrimp to all sorts of different cheeses. Best part is they're only €2 each, so you can try a bunch of different kinds and maybe pair it with a couple glasses of wine. By far the best place to get these finger foods is at Osteria al Square. This place was super small, but the food just hit the spot. Another thing I loved about this place is that right across the canal is one of the last gondola makers in Venice. Like I talked about earlier in this video, it takes a long time to build a gondola, so being able to watch as they work on them is such a special treat. Next, let's talk about restaurants. By far the best place to get dinner in Venice is called 6342 alla Corte. Everything about this restaurant is incredible. The food, the atmosphere, the live music, and to top it all off, it's not touristy at all. Because it's still a hidden gem, you can usually walk in and be seated pretty fast, but I wouldn't bet on it, so make sure to make a reservation just in case. This place was not only our favorite meal in Venice, but our favorite meal in all of Italy so far. Immediately upon sitting down, we ordered the clam and mussels, and I cannot recommend this dish enough. I think you could tell right here how much we loved it because we were dipping our shells in that sauce until the very last drop. Anna and I both got seafood pasta, which had scallops in it, and then we finished the night off by sharing the lamb chops. Even though all the seafood was delicious, this dish was by far our favorite of the entire night, and we still dream of it to this day. And now let's be honest, dinner is never fully complete without dessert, so I want to share our favorite gelato shop in Venice called Suso. This place is a must try, but be ready for some long lines during the day. Just make sure to try the pistachio gelato here. I think it may be the creamiest gelato in all of Italy. It was so delicious. Now up next, we have number 8, Dorsoduro.
Every year, Venice gets around 20 million visitors, so this tiny island will be crowded no matter what time of year you visit. The Venice government has helped stop some of this over-tourism by banning cruise ships, and just recently they are making day trippers pay a €5 tourist tax to enter the city. Even though it's crowded, it seems like everyone goes to the exact same places and skips out on the rest of the island, which is a huge mistake. I'm not kidding you, the biggest secret we're giving you in this video is visiting Dorsoduro. This is Venice's university district. I went to this district 2 different times during the middle of the day, and there was no one around. I almost couldn't believe my eyes. One big plus about this area is that it has the osteria we brought up earlier with all of those delicious cicchettis. I would even recommend hiring a gondola over here because we did see a couple of people cruising through these canals, and it looked so calm and romantic having the water to yourselves compared to other areas of the island. You could spend hours strolling through the alleys on this side, and it's just so magical. Up next, we have number 9, Marchini Time Pastry Shop.
On a tiny street between St.Mark Square and Rialto Bridge is the best pastry shop in Venice. This place is very fast-paced, is standing room only, and will always be packed with locals and tourists. I'm not embarrassed to admit it, we started every single morning at this shop with a cappuccino and a bunch of pastries. I tried pretty much everything in here, but if you want the very best pastry, you must try the frittelle alla crema, which are basically cream-fried puffs. This pastry is directly linked with the Carnival Festival, so I have no idea if they'll be available when you visit, but please let me know it down in the comments if they are. This pastry shop and every single pastry inside was made from heaven, and I hope you enjoy it just as much as we did. Last but not least, let's move on to number 10, the Rialto Bridge.
Last but certainly not least is the iconic Rialto Bridge. This is the oldest and most famous of the 4 bridges that cross the Grand Canal. This was a huge architectural and engineering achievement during the Renaissance, and it is stunning. I really love this bridge. It's definitely one of the more crowded attractions in Venice, and it's probably because the views you get from the top overlooking the Grand Canal cannot be beat. I love it during the day, I love it during sunset, it is so beautiful. Our favorite things to do here were get some drinks at some nearby restaurants along the water, and of course watch gondolas glide right underneath the bridge.